Director Bradshaw, Jason, can you hear us? Good morning. Is there anyone else with you today, Jason?
No, I'm by myself. Thank you.
Okay, can I?
I'm sorry.
I was asking if we have another director.
Oh,
Oh, okay, okay. Um, what I would like to do at this time is ask Bill want to come up and give ground rules for giving public testimony. As we go through today's meeting agenda, I will ask for public testimony on each agenda item. So, Dell, if you could go through that.
Thank you, Chair. Anyone wishing to present oral testimony indicate so to the chair. Oral testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, subject to the discretion of the chair. Your testimony must be related to an item on the board agenda. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you identify yourself and spell your name for the record. After 3 minutes, I will call time, after which you will have 15 seconds to conclude your testimony. Keep in mind that this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts with us. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to provide an answer. For anyone wishing to submit written testimony, instructions for doing so are on the page of the agenda under the section titled Public.
Thank you. Under section 2 of today's agenda, the approval of minutes, we are items A and B are going to be deferred until next month's meeting. Under section 3 of today's meeting, the first item of business is 3A, the selection and hiring of an executive assistant pursuant to section 201H B, Hawaii Revised Statutes. For this agenda item, board members, I believe we need to go into an executive session since it does involve personnel. I would like to ask for a motion to executive session. Aye. Sorry for everybody that's assembled in the room, but let's just step out for a brief. Thank you.
Yeah, that's. Let's get lunch. Oh, very. Water. And I say. It's weird.
To call the meeting back to order. Excuse me,
I do still.
live again. So the board of directors met in executive session to discuss selection and hiring of an executive assistant. And after our deliberation, we're pleased to announce that we have, I will make a motion, well, ask for a motion to approve an executive assistant. Would you like to? Yeah, so actually the motion, let me just say what the motion will be, it is to select Craig Hurai who serve as the executive assistant for operation. Starting date will be January 17th or as soon as possible thereafter. Starting salary for the position will be set at 90% of the executive director's current salary.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Is there anyone in the public wishing to give testimony on this agenda item or the motion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, say aye. Is there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Congratulations, Greg. Thanks to Del Juan, who's and to let everybody know that Del won't be leaving us. He will be staying with us and working in the development brand. So we're glad to keep you aboard and to see you here in future meetings. Thank you. We're going to move next to item 3B of today's agenda. This is to accept the audited financial statements of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Sandy. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any one of the public who can give testimony on this agenda item? Over to staff.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone, and good morning. I'm Holly Osu, the Chief Financial Officer for HHFDC. I will be presenting the results of the audit, along with the facts and discussions of financial activities in a PowerPoint presentation. Abby Okumoto will be assisting me this morning, and also Melissa Loy, our corporate controller. Received excerpts of the State of Hawaii as well as slides.
Speak a little bit louder.
Or I'll try my best. Okay. The auditor, Acuity LLP, issued reports on the financial statements. Ideally, issued reports on the financial statements, the total control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters, and the compliance report for various programs. There was one major program this year. The first report of the auditor rendered unmodified opinion on the audited financial statement. Therefore, the financial statements present fairly the corporation's financial position as of June 30. The changes to the financial position of cash flow for the years of the company. At the end of the audit, the auditors had identified an error or an accounting scheme which management corrected immediately. Error or accounting change was related to the overstatement of the liability recognized on the future costs of development for the villages of Kapolei. The overstatement was corrected as a prior period adjustment, which removed the approximate liability balance of 25.6 million as of June 30, 2022. Accordingly, the beginning balance of the net position for this year was restated for the dwelling unit revolving fund for the same amount. In lieu of recognizing this amount as a liability on the financial statement, the amount is considered to be a commitment, which will only require disclosure in the notes to the financial statements. As of June 30, 2023, the disclosed commitment balance for the VOK project was approximately 28.3. The independent auditor's report on 17th of financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government accounting standards, the auditor classified the identified error as a material weakness. There were no instances of non-compliance. This report will be report compliance for each major federal This requires a uniform guidance. The auditor opined the corporation complied with all material respects. Types of compliance requirements compliance supplements. Also, they didn't identify any material weaknesses or deficiencies in terms of requirements in accordance with the The Housing Trust Fund was identified as a major federal program that underwent scrutiny testing. The schedule of findings and question costs reported detail as described previously. Financial statements. There are two types of funds of the corporation. First, we have the governmental funds, which are comprised of funds that are primarily financed by public monies, whether it's from the state or federal governments. Secondly, we have proprietary funds, comprised of enterprise funds, which are used to account for those activities for which the intent of management is to recover costs and to be sustainable. So talking about the statement of revenue expenses and change in net position, which presents how the corporation's net positions changed during the fiscal year. So here's a depiction of 5 years statement of activity. Expenses in like brown. Brownish color. So that is our expenses, and the green is the revenues. So expenses is relatively flat, except for in 20 and 21. which were the years that we were severely impacted by COVID activities, which resulted in a lot of federal monies. As for revenues, the green, other than 2019, where we had an 85 million for the portfolio sale, properties that we sold, it's pretty, the trend is very closely related to the allotments. Get a lot of infusions. Next slide. So this slide reflects our third unit revolving rental housing revolving fund infusions. So those are the drivers for the revenues as previously described. Next is a statement of net position. The statement of net position is a snapshot of the financial position of the corporation, such as June 30, the last day of the fiscal year. Statement lists all of the corporation's resources or assets and deferred outflows of resources, and all the corporation, what it owes or liabilities, and deferred inflows of resources. The differences between the two equals the corporation's net position. Time the changes in net position serves as a useful indicator of the corporation's fiscal health. So this graph depicts over 5 years the assets, liabilities, and net position trend. So the top line is the assets line, shows positive incline. Very bottom is the liabilities, which shows, other than the fiscal year 20, which we talked about as impacted by COVID, is pretty flat. So as a result of that, the net position, which is the purple line in between, basically follows the trend of the assets. Governmental funds. The governmental funds are comprised of 6 funds. These are the descriptions of each fund. Slide. So this one talks about the assets, liabilities, and fund balance in comparison fiscal year 23 to 22. We look at the dark brown, that is the liabilities. And that became pretty, it really in sits where there was a lot of activity. And the increase in assets, which is the green columns, as of fiscal year 23 was primarily due to the receivables or due from the state allotments that were not yet expended. And that was about 60.6 million. That was a driver for this particular slide. So fund balance also correlates and goes up. Next. This statement is for the revenues and expenditures. And for presentation purposes, the transfers in are included in net transfers out are included in expenses. So this slide represents the comparative of the revenues and expenses fiscal year 20 over fiscal year 22. And as mentioned previously, the allotments fairly even over both years. And as far as for the expenses in fiscal year 22, why it's so high is because we had transfers out to DERF. So it'll transfer to the proprietary fund. 23, there was no large transfers from the governmental to the proprietary. So this slide of revenues and expenses, rental funds, reflects the significance of allotted geo bond infusions that we receive from the geo bond funds. Next, we'll talk about the proprietary funds financial statements. So this listing, it represents all of the funds, but I'll only be concentrating on the material funds presentation. I also wanted to mention that these funds are self-sustaining by the user charges, which are supplemented by conveyance taxes, cash infusions transferred over from the governmental funds. It was imperative that management fiscally prudent to monitor the expenses to ensure sustainability of these funds. Slide. So in this particular comparison of revenues and expenses from fiscal 20, it showed 45.4 million green column, as well as a 4.5 year 23. Essentially, what that represents is transfers from the rental housing revolving fund, about 44.6 million to TURF, which is in the green side. And that transfer was a result of Act 236, Section 22, which basically moved tax-exempt bond monies received in the rental housing revolving fund could not be fully utilized. So it was transferred over to the DERF fund and utilize these type of bond monies because of the construction activities under DERF activity. So at the very top, interest also increased. Interest income from investments alone increased by 10 million. That's probably a result of the increase in interest rates. So this graph reflects the revenues and expenses, all of the funds, and it just highlights how much DERF and rental housing revolving fund is really the largest funds, greatest activities. This graph depicts the assets, liabilities, and net position balances of each of the proprietary funds. And it's similar, the rental housing revolving fund and DERF are greatest activity, greatest asset balances, and position. Next, we'll talk about the rental housing revolving fund since it is significant. This fund accounts for state funds, repayment of financing, and interest earnings from the financing and investment of such funds to provide developers of qualified rental housing projects with loans and or grants for the development, pre-development, construction, acquisition, preservation, and rehabilitation of rental housing. The fund also incurs administrative expenses, such as personnel costs, legal, that are directly related to time and resources necessary to carry out the purposes of providing rental housing. So the net position increased by approximately 5.4 million to over $1 billion. The increases is primarily the result of collection of the statutory maximum in conveyance taxes of 38 million, interest payments 13.1 million, which are offset by 1.3 million operating expenses, and also transfers out to DERF of about 4.6 million. So in this slide, it's a comparison of the fiscal year 23 and 22 revenues and expenses for this particular fund. In the expenditures, you see the 44.6 million that I talked about was transferred over to DERF. That's why it's so much higher than fiscal year 22. Interest income from investments in the green, it did increase. It was 8.3 million in the prior year, so 4.3 in the prior year, and this year was increase of 4 million. The next fund that I'd like to talk about is the dwelling unit revolving. This fund accounts for state funds used for acquiring, developing, selling, leasing, and renting residential, commercial, and industrial properties, and providing mortgage and interim financing, rental income, sales proceeds, and interest earnings from the financing and investment of such funds. So as far as the assets in the green column, it did increase over the prior year as a result of the transfers in from the rental housing revolving fund of about 44.6 million. As mentioned earlier, as part of the audit, the auditors did indicate that there was an error for the VOK, estimated future cost of development. So the liabilities here do not reflect those because we did have to remove them from our balance sheet. So they're no longer reflected here for both years. But as a whole, the liability is pretty flat. So in this particular slide is comparing the DERF revenues and expenses for fiscal year 23 over 22. And again, the revenues is very large compared to the prior year because of the transfer in. There was an increase in net position, primarily due to transfers in, interest income of 12 million, rental income like 2.8 million, offset by the losses of the disposal of our assets of 1.7 million and operating expenses of 8 million. Next slide. So next, it's the summaries of tools and resources committed for completed projects of fiscal year 23. So this slide shows the projects that were completed during the year where the tenants or owners are move into the units. So we have total units of 527, of which 517 of them were portable. Slide shows the types of resources that were provided to these projects by HHFDC. It's different programs. This is a listing of all the projects that we have in our template. That concludes my presentation. If you folks have any questions or comments, staff is here.
Board members, questions for staff? Covered it all, Holly.
Well, please do the financial statements.
Yeah.
At 8 p.m. last night. So I really want to thank my staff for working past 8 o'clock to get this presentation done today. We will be forwarding folks, if you would like, a copy of the entire financial audit report. So please let us know. And we will be getting copies from the auditors that's coming from the mainland. So please don't be shy. If you want a copy, please ask us. And will also be available on our website.
Great. So yeah, there's no questions for staff. I'm gonna ask for a motion to, or excuse me, we do have a motion. I'm gonna call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Molly, and thank you, staff. Worth of work that what you just shared with us. It's extremely important. Thank you for all, to all.
Attributed to all of the staff of HHFDC, because we have a lot of accounting procedures that need to be adhered to ensure that we get a clean opinion that we really want to thank all the staff of HHFDC.
Right, next up is item 3C. Is to approve the resolution of low-income housing tax credits for the Deer Park Low-Rise Homes Redevelopment Phase 1 project located in Honolulu, Oahu. 1-3-039-006-008. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to give testimony on this agenda item? Hearing none, I do. Oh, do we have someone? Why don't you come up and introduce yourself and right here. Sorry. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Chairman Claire, Chair Ryman. My name is Ben Park. I'm with the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Just wanted to relay Executive Director Hakeem Wansafi's apologies for not being here today. HA, we really appreciate all of the HPHA related for action items today. Just on a personal note, starting working at the HPHA in 2000. Really happy to see these things going forward. We have our development partners here, so I just any questions to them.
Thank you. And I do want to mention that we do have written testimony from the Executive Director, this agenda item, and for the other ones that follow. Needed to thank you.
Morning. Okay. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Jay Nakamura, Housing Specialist, the Finance Branch, here to report on the Tech Award. Hill Park, Rises and Homes. The applicant is Hill Park 2 LLC. Michael's Development. Project situated on 4 acres over 2 parcels of land of Ahonu and Yapuni Streets. There are 302 LIHTC units and 2 managers units for a total of 304. The product types range from studio to one. There's approximately 335,000 square feet. And it's across 4 multiplex buildings and common area facilities. Project's going to target families at 60% of the median income and has an affordable commitment period of 65. The property is being secured via a lease agreement with the Hawaii Housing Authority. Total development cost estimated at $180 million. This project was part of the 2023 funding round applicant group, where it requested $8 million in LIHTC, $92 million tax exempt bonds. Housing Revolving Fund. Additional capital resources for the project include a $30 million permanent senior loan, 900,000 in deferred developer fee, and 600,000 in other financing sources. Project also has a commitment for 80 Section 8 project-based vouchers from the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Staff reviewed the project's application for completeness, minimum threshold, and competitively scored the project alongside the other applicant groups using the program criteria. And it was noted that the project received high total scores across each of the programs, was deemed meritorious for an award. And the project metrics also, like costs per unit, costs per square foot, construction, developer fee, were all in line or below the average. It's determined that HHFDC had sufficient RHRF, but insufficient private activity bond for the HMMF program project. Consequently, in October of last year, the board granted approval of a tri-party cooperative agreement between the city and county of Honolulu, HHFDC, Department of Budget and Finance. And this agreement, as you know, coordinates the issuance of private activity bonds from the city with the corresponding awards of LIHTC or HRF from HHFDC. From a readiness perspective, the project already has Chapter 243 exemptions and UNH approval from the city. Civil and building plans have been submitted for review, and permits are expected in 2024, Q1. Project anticipates financial closing and commencement of construction in the Q3 of this year, with completion 2 years thereafter. So with this, staff recommends the board approve the following: reservation of up to $8,384,158 in annual federal LIHTC over 10 years, and the same amount state LIHTC 5 years from the non-volume. The reservation is subject to the provisions and conditions recommended in exhibits C, D, and E of the 4 actions. The reservation be conditioned upon the City and County of Honolulu issuance of private activity bond to support the project, and to authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this 4 action. Chair, at this time, I'd like to call upon representatives from the development team who prepared a brief presentation.
Questions for Jay? We have Sharon.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. If it's okay, Director, could I borrow your staff? Because I can't talk and chew gum at the same time. Good morning, Chair Mackler, Vice Chair Ryman, Director Sasaki, Director Bradshaw, Director Kimura, Director Mendy, Designee Evans, Director Glenn, and Deputy Attorney General Ching. Good morning. My name is Sharon Har, Michael's Development. Before I get started, I actually wanted to introduce our team, just so you have an idea of who we are. Today, sitting with me is Daniel Simonich with Michael's Development. We also have Ty Paw with Michael's Development, as well as our lead architect from Launi Architecture, Grant Chang, with us this morning. So just want to have them recognize them for all of their hard work. Happy New Year. We are excited to be the first project on the 2024 agenda. I think, before we get started, I wanted to put in a slide because Ben Park had mentioned there's some history there with Michael's and Kuhio Park. And I think it's really important that we go through that so you kind of understand how I think the revitalization of Kuhio Park is finally coming to fruition. So if we could get to that first slide, please. So back in 2011, Michael's Development did the acquisition rehab for towers A and B at Kuhio Park. At the time, everyone still calls it KPT, but ever since we rehabilitated, we call it TKP, the towers at Kuhio Park. We did 555 units total. And I think that was probably the first part of the revitalization of Kuhio Park. And again, the Hawaii Public Housing Authority has been a wonderful partner in this endeavor. So this was completed in 2011. Next up, slide. I think one of the other things that makes this project so special is that in 2011, Michael's Development, in partnership with HPHA, applied to HUD for something called a Choice Neighborhood Initiative planning grant, also known as a CNI grant. And in 2012, we were awarded this grant, this planning grant. And so in 2013, we kicked it off with managers from HUD, key stakeholders, HUI chairs, task force members, and resident representatives. And so over a 2-year period, more than 200 individuals participated on the steering committees on one of 4 task forces. And this diverse group of stakeholders brought a range of experience in areas of expertise, which helped form the final transformation plan with various programs and initiatives to implement the plan. So in 2014, the CNI plan was released, and these were some of the concepts, I think, which really showed the community of Kalihi getting together and saying, this is what we want to see. Our residents from Kuhio Park, the greater Kalihi community, our legislators, our government officials saying, this is what's going to really help us revitalize Kuhio Park because it's such an important part of Kalihi. So from that point, next slide. I think one of the interesting things is there was a transformation plan. But since that time, we've looked at ways to update some of the building plans to ensure that we kept those concepts. However, we actually increased density while increasing open space. And so if you look at the first plan in 2014, we actually had less units. And we were able to increase, with the help of Launi Architecture, we moved to double loaded buildings. And now we have 650 units when all 3 phases of Kuhio Park will be built. And if you can just see the open space now and less buildings, yet more density, more units. Slide. I think one of the things that we really heard and which resonated from the community was they wanted Kuhio Park to be a part of the greater Kalihi community. They didn't want Kuhio Park to be kind of this offshoot of Kalihi. And so it was about neighborhood connectivity. And I think one of the things we participated in it last year, and I think one of the significant things that came out was something called the walking school bus. We learned that many of our children at Kuhio Park had low attendance, and transportation was one of the issues, getting to Fern Elementary. So we actually came up with a plan. We worked with the city and county and Complete Streets, and we came up with something called, and our social services advocate, Better Tomorrows, we came up with something called the walking school bus. And essentially now we have our kids, they all get together. There are representatives who walk them to school every day, and it's just been a really successful program. People from the community have seen it, and we've gotten so much support from our government officials. And it just shows what we can do when we all get together to create a community that we know is such an important part of the greater good. Slide, please. Okay, so this slide basically shows what is currently at Kuhio Park and low-rise, Kuhio Park low-rises and homes. And the area in red, this will be essentially the portions, these buildings will be demolished for phase 1. And I want to be, you can't really see it clearly, but there's 13 buildings that formally are currently within phase 1. And there's 3 buildings to the left side. I don't have a pointer, but That will be used for the construction laydown area. Again, we want to keep construction impacts to a minimum. And so we intend to have a laydown area for our construction GC to really just try to accommodate the phase one demolition as well as construction and to have minimal impacts to our residents. So essentially, we'll be demolishing 16 buildings and 13 will be part of phase one and 3 will be for the construction laydown area. Slide, please. So this is what we're looking at for the master plan. Like I said, 650 units will be done in 3 phases. We are here before you today for phase one, which will be 304 units that are delivered. And as noted by Mr. Nakamura, it is phase one is comprised of everything from studios to 4 bedrooms. We will actually be relocating 64 families. We intend to have a kickoff shortly, and relocation is something we want to make it as painless as possible for our residents. We've had some community meetings. We already had surveys that were done. Last year was just planning with our residents, and now we're going to be moving into specifics. But we are really excited to get moving on this. And so I just, on a personal note, I really want to thank this board. HHFDC has been such an incredible partner in all of Michael's projects. We have had a presence in the state of Hawaii for over a decade. Our first, project was, of course, the ACT rehab at Kuhio Park. And then we delivered 170 units in Kailua Kona. Our projects are known as Le Ohana and Le Kupuna. Then more recently at Keahumoa Place in East Kapolei, we delivered 320 units. Most recently, Hale Viola Senior Residences downtown. I'm sure many of you have seen that. Kupuna Housing, 155 units. We couldn't have done it without HHFDC, the City and County of Honolulu. With respect to Kuhio Park, our partners, Hawaii Public Housing Authority, of course, this board, and we're so grateful to the HHFDC hardworking staff who's always been so supportive of us. So we are grateful, Chair. I'm here to answer any questions, but we are respectfully requesting your support of the agenda items today. Thank you.
Board members, questions?
The buildings that are going to be demolished in phase one, how old are they? How long have they been?
They have been there, and you know what, Designee Evans, I have to go back and double check, but what happens is in order to demolish them, you have to do something called a physical needs assessment. HUD requires a physical needs assessment, and that has been completed to show that there's physical obsolescence. And so HUD has now, we're in the process of having that approved with the assistance of Director Glenn and his staff. And so I don't want to give you the exact year, how long those buildings, but the assessment has essentially been completed. We're waiting now to upload and get the approval from HUD that the physical needs assessment and obsolescence are being approved, and therefore we can move forward with demolition.
Be safe to say they were built in the last century.
Yes. Yes. That makes
You would have relocate all 64 to the same site. So
I think I should have been clear. So we have a total of 176 units in Kuhio Park low rises and homes. We attempted to identify the smallest amount of the population that we could move. And what we did was, if you look at phase one, we are building 304 units. So the 176 families, the families that are actually staying will be able to then move on into the new phase one. But with the 64 families, our consultant will be coming out here shortly. We're having a kickoff, and it's basically a Tetris game. We're working with HPHA, has been a wonderful partner. We're looking first. In our surveys, we asked them, do you want to continue? Like, some of them actually want to go across the street to the towers. Some of them want to go to other HPHA properties. Some of them want to go to Michael's properties, right? And so it's essentially figuring out what units we have available, what will accommodate, what's available when, and just kind of like trying to make everything fit like a Tetris game. And so we're going to do our best because we need to have all 64 families out in order to do abatement and demolition. And so, but again, we're cognizant of the fact that HPHA makes rent off of the vouchers. And so we have to continue. It's a very fine-tuned game. And so we are working diligently to ensure, again, that it's a painless process for our residents while ensuring that we're hitting all of the needs financially.
Do you have an update on the city's bond status?
Yes, we are really excited. We actually received our award, I say November. Was it November, Craig? In any event, we received it late 2023 and so grateful to have received the allocation of just under $93 million in private activity bonds from the city. And it's my understanding that there was a cooperative agreement that was executed between and the city as well as HHFDC. And so we are cognizant of the cooperative agreement and we're grateful for the state and the city's financing. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we intend to start bond calls in the upcoming months. And so the city will be a partner with us at the table with HHFDC as we go through our bond calls.
Thank you. So just,
And HPH. Sorry.
just speaking to the motion here, this language about completing of and to the city and county of Honolulu providing a private activity volume.
It has been allocated.
Thank you.
We have a motion to approve on the floor. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Companion agenda item next is item 3B. Housing revolving fund project award for the Caheel Park low rise home redevelopment. Phase 1 project located from Honolulu, TMK number 1-3-39-039-006-008. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. You have a second? Second. Is there anyone in the public wishing to give testimony on this agenda item? If not, I'm going to turn it over to.
Here. This is the corresponding RHRF award for the same project in the previous for action. Mentioned the project was part of the 2023 funding round. The various resources include a $49 million loan from the Huerto Housing Revolving Fund. Staff reviewed the project's application minimum threshold requirements, competitively scored the project under the RHRF criteria. It's noted the project received second highest RHRF total score amongst the applicant group, being meritorious for an award. The project's award is based on the following loan terms: an amount of $48,556,752 with a term of 50 years. No interest in years 1 through 3 and a quarter point thereafter. There's origination fee 1% of the final loan amount. No repayment during years 1 through 3, construction period. After that, project will pay 75% of the cash flow after paying expenses, senior debt fees, and other recognized expenses. The loan to value ratio shall not exceed 100% of the RHRF loan and all unit senior to the RHRF loan. No disbursement of developer fee until satisfactory completion of the project, and it is subject to the availability of funds from RH. And with this, staff recommends the board approve the following. RHRF project award alone of $48,556,752 to Caheel Park 2 LLC. For the Caheel Park low rises and homes redevelopment phase 1 project with the terms and conditions prescribed, section 3G, the attached RHR preliminary for the sixth project. And furthermore, subject to the following: one, authorization and approval for the proposed project and the release of RHR program funds as mandated under chapter 15311 administrative rules. Two, execution of documents satisfactory to the HHFDC outlining the terms and conditions of the project award. Documents shall specify the standard terms and conditions as required to meet all statutory requirements of the RHR program and the specific terms and conditions that are applicable to the applicant's project award funds. Three, completion of all documentation necessary and required to secure the release of RHRF funds. Four, certification of the applicant to comply with all applicable statutory program requirements, including but not limited to chapters 343, 103D, and 104, and 103-50 Hawaii revised statutes. They may relate to the use of state funds. Five, total fees paid to the developer for the project, including but not limited to developer overhead, developer fees, consultant fees, and project management fees, shall not exceed the amounts indicated in the applicant's consolidated application and in this form. Six, availability of RHRF program funds. And finally, the city and county of Honolulu providing its private activity bond volume cap. And finally, to authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action.
Okay, any questions, board members? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. On the agenda is item 8. This is information on the Honolulu Living Community Project located in Kailua, Hawaii. The number is 37-4-004-014. This is for information. Are you presenting?
I'm trying to key up.
Doing that, I'll ask if there's anyone in the public wishing to give testimony on this agenda item. So.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. Happy New Year, David Oy, Finance Manager for HHFDC. This agenda item is regarding the Honolulu Living Community Project located in Kailua Kona. This award was made back on July 14th, 2022 by HHFDC. In that funding round, the Board of Directors approved an award of $25,900,000 in tax-exempt issuance of Hula Mai multifamily bonds. $2,569,880 in federal low-income housing tax credits over 10 years, $2,569,880 in state LIHTC over 5 years. On July 13th, 2023, the Board of Directors approved an extension of the deadline to issue the HMMF bonds through July 14th, 2024. And at that meeting, the board requested the awardee provide an update on the status of the project in January 2024, which is the purposes of this for information today. So if you refer to Exhibit A of the for information, that gives a current timeline of the events for the project. I've already gone through the first item on July 14th, 22, which is the award of tax credits and bonds. On July 13th, the U.S. government filed a lis pendens claiming the property itself was subject to forfeiture. However, at that time, the project did not receive notice of this lis pendens on the property. Throughout the year of 2022, you can see that the project was working as closely as it could with the U.S. attorneys regarding the status and disposition of the property, filing various court documents, and claiming their leasehold interest as a legitimate bona fide purchaser of the property. So at that point in early 23, on February 8th, 2023, the U.S. attorney sent appraisals to the council for the project and the project responded in turn with concerns regarding the valuation and appraisal. In March of last year, the government recognized the leasehold interest of Honolulu, the project. And then what happened after that was we, in July, in turn, approved the extension that was required due to these extensive governmental matters in relation to the property. As a result of the ruling by the U.S. attorneys, the project had to do a complete redesign of its architectural and civil plans. And because of that, they had to do a lot, because of the fact they had to do a lot consolidation in relation to due to these court actions. So that has been the major cause for the additional time required to complete the project. Again, complete redesign architectural and civil plans. So in October of last year, the U.S. magistrate signed findings and recommendations granting the sale of the real property. And as of November last year, the sale was approved, so the project continued to move forward. Based on discussions with the project, the lot consolidation of the upper lot is still in process right now. The redesign of civil and architectural plans is still in process. Basically, the entire project has to move 20 feet north from the original site. They will be re-underwriting the project with the finance branch, so they will have to come back to us and re-underwrite. Given the current interest rate environment, due to the delay, there has been significant cost increases as well as the cost of the redesign that's been required. They will be rebidding all the construction work that's required for the project, and also subsequently plans and building permit reviews and approvals will still be pending. Based on this set of thresholds that has to be met, the next exhibit on the following page details the new schedule of milestones and the changes from the original schedule as applied for. So you can see that the closing would begin, the projected building permit expectation is in May of 24, and the construction would hopefully target beginning on August 2024. We also have the development partner online with us right now, Carla Morales, to provide additional information to the extension request. Carlo, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Carlo Morales, CEO of Honolulu. Apologize for not being there in person. But we had originally requested an extension back in July with the intention of giving an update, and appreciate doing so. And at that time of the extension request, we had come up with a game plan of our lot consolidation, which involved the upper lot and our two TMKs that were involved. And through that process and dealing with the federal government and all that was needed to accomplish the lot consolidation, we had to redesign it to not utilize the land above, had to incur more cost in our architectural site plan and civil plan to be able to do the lot consolidation independently of all other parties. We've also been successful in with the communications with the federal government on the less pendants, and more recently received notification from the federal judge agreeing to the process of the parcel being sold. So because of all those different circumstances, we are moving forward. We should have our lot consolidation application to the county shortly after the surveyor does his work. And the only difference between our timelines that was presented back in July is that we're doing it independent and just using the 2 TNKs of the project site.
Man, that's the question. So, to which US federal government agency do we owe this delay?
Well, who are you dealing with directly from the government? Who filed the list pendants?
Yeah, our attorneys are dealing with the assistant U.S. attorney on Honolulu, and the negotiation of the parcel being purchased is with the U.S. Marshals. And
Excuse me, but who are they representing? Which federal agency are they?
That's a good question. There's the lawsuit between the landowner as who we're leasing the land from. And that's where the less pendants and the federal investigation of their accused wrongdoing, and then how the less pendants was put onto the property in the first place.
Designee Evans, we can look that up for you, provide you that information for the meeting. We can look that up for you.
Okay, thank you.
Questions for staff? Any of them? Well, thank you for providing us with an update.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you.
So before we move on to the next item of business, which is item. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess. Oh.
Does the electricity come back on?
Yeah.
Have like.
After recess and, moving on to item 3F of today's agenda. This is information on the HPHA School Street redevelopment phase 1 project located in Honolulu, Oahu, TNT number 11-6-009-003. Today for giving that presentation. Oh.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sure, the format, apologies. Chair, Madam Chair, members, Mr. Executive Director. Hello and good morning. The item is an informative status on School Street. And the intent, leave, is going to summarize where we're at and what's going on. So School Street Community is a three-phase development that is targeting to develop approximately 800 affordable units on the existing School Street campus, which is HPHA's headquarters. The first phase of 250 units is going to be before you today later. HPHA and Retirement Housing Foundation entered into an MDA a while back to develop this site. The development process has been going on for a while. Recently, through relationships that affordable housing developers have between each other, RHF and HCDC, Higher Cost of Development, decided to reach an agreement to allow higher cost of development to basically take over the baton, all the good work that Retirement Housing Foundation has done to date. And that is primarily due to high-rich Costa folks in Hawaii. As you know, RHF and high-rich Costa are both national developers of affordable housing. And at times, depending on where the needs are, we help each other out. So this is really no more than in the best interest of making sure that affordable housing continues and the best interest of making sure tax credit industry as a general projects continue to move forward. It is very common for large national affordable housing developers to collaborate with each other. And this is an actual example. Ships are right next to the headquarters are very close to each other. My home is actually biking distance from their office in Southern California. Well, depending which home. Lately, my home seems here to be more often than California. So anyways, what we have reached an agreement to proceed with the development and get this started construction in March. We actually intend to have the beginning of the relocation, some of the buildings that are going to be preserved on the campus starting next week. So that is in place. From a building permit perspective, on target for March. Construction lender has been identified and signed as of today. Tax credit investor signed as of today. State credit investor signed today. We are picking bond calls off next week. RHF is here. Mr. Stuart Hartman, President and CEO, and Mr. Bob Park, Vice President of Development and Acquisition. Also with me here today is the Forum Partners, our local development partner, Chris Rucker, Mr. Scott Settle, our Affordable Housing Economic Development Foundation nonprofit partner. We also have today with us our partners from HPHA, Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Mr. Ben is here, you presented earlier, and Mr. Carson Schultz. I have neck problems by the time I'm done. Mr. Hakeem Owens, as mentioned earlier, was unable to attend today, but sends his greetings. All the assignment agreements required for High Ridge Costa to receive the baton from all the good work that RHF has done has been completed, and HPHA has approved such assignment. And so we are moving forward on that. The intent before you today here is to approve the assignment for HCDC. request a supplemental allocation of bonds, RHRF. And we will be coming back February to request your approval to close. I understand we couldn't do that all today. I would have loved to, but to close this transaction. Did I do good? Absolutely. I'll hand over to them. But if there's any questions, sorry.
Is this board's consent required to this transfer from the retirement partners to high cost?
So that's a very good technical question we've been debating recently.
Understand it's no.
Technically, the allocation is with the project, but we'll have a change in the applicant sponsor. HHFDC has to be notified. The board's actions on the supplement.
This notification.
Yes.
Yeah, I did read that the HPHA board, the transfer.
That is correct. That is correct. The action today is the last step to go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. Did you want to add some things, Steve? Or is we getting ready for the next one?
Get it ready.
Okay. Going on to the 3G to one resolution number 194, which amends resolution number 163 by increasing the intended issuance amount of the Hula May multifamily tax exempt holding bonds. Two, requests from the awardee to increase the low-income housing tax credit reservation for the HPHA school fee redeveloped phase 1A project located in Honolulu, Hawaii. Number 1/6-009-003. Is there a motion to approve? Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there anyone in the public with testimony on this agenda item? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to David.
All right, again, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. So the HPHA School Street project, again, as Mr. Mohana mentioned, is a 250 unit project for elderly residents in Honolulu. To refresh the board, the project consists of studios, 1 and 2 bedroom units. We will serve those up to 30, 50, and 60% of the AMI. So the project has committed to an affordability period of 55 years and is on leasehold land owned by the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. The developer again is now High Ridge Costa Development Company, HCDC, along with HPHA. The general contractor for the project will be Hawaiian Dredging, and the property manager will be Michael's Management. So the state legislature had approved $40 million in general obligation funds to the HHFDC Rental Housing Revolving Fund for the fiscal year 21 and 22 for the purposes of the HPHA School Street redevelopment phase 1 project. These funds were appropriated pursuant to Act 88, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021. Subsequently, on October 14th, 2021, the project was awarded $71.5 million from the Hula May Multifamily Bond Program. The deadline to issue bonds at the time was October 31st, 2022. The project was also awarded $5,257,493 in federal low-income housing tax credits over 10 years and $5,257,493 in annual 5 years. And pursuant to Act 88 mentioned above, the project was awarded an RHRF loan of up to $40 million. The funds from Act 88 were contingent upon the project commencing construction at the time, no later than August 30th, 2022. The legislation itself allowed the Board of Directors extensions to this timeline. And at the June 29th, 2022 Board of Directors meeting, the board extended the commencement of construction to October 31st, 2023. Deadline was subsequently extended again to May 5th, 2024 at the HHFDC August 10th, 2023 board meeting. As for the bonds, on February 22nd, 2022, the governor approved the request for preliminary approval to issue bonds in the amount of up to $71.5 million. On September 8th, 2022, the board granted an extension to the deadline to issue bonds August 31st, 2023. And at the August 10th, 2023 meeting, the board approved another extension for the deadline to issue bonds to May 5th, 2024. On November 16th, 2023, as previously noted, the HPHA Board of Directors approved the transfer and assignment of the Master Development Agreement for the project from the original HPHA co-developer Retirement Housing Foundation, the High Ridge Costa Development Company, HCDC, which was again described in the previous presentation. On December 1st, 2023, project submitted a request and resubmitted an application for financing to increase the existing awards as follows. Requesting an increase of the original 71.5 million HMMF award to now $88,690,614. And also requesting increasing the original federal and state LIHTC reservations from $5,257,493 up to $6,131,601 over 10 years for federal LIHTC and 5 years for state LIHTC. There is also an request to increase the total RHRF loan to up to $67,860,277. This would be an increase of $27,860,277 on top of the $40 million appropriated by Act 88. In its processes, staff evaluated and rescored this project and the new application competitively against all the other original applicants from the original 2021 round, which was awarded. After evaluation and competitive analysis with all those previously awarded projects at the time, the project was still found to rank among the highest award awardees, inclusive of the requested increases. So in addition to the LIHTC equity bonds and the RHRF loan, the developer will be deferring their developer fee entirely and partially after the conversion to financing. A table detailing the line item changes in the budget is attached to the for action as Exhibit C. The overall budget increase is being attributed to inflation, supply chain challenges, and the rising interest rate since the awards. Most of the changes can be found in the construction cost increases and the increases in financing costs. With specific reference to the interest rates, the 2021 application that was submitted and awarded was underwritten using interim debt modeled at 3.5% and permanent financing at 5%. The current resubmitted model for 2023 uses a budget reflecting the current rates of 7.5% for construction and 6.75% for permanent financing, which is more conducive to what the current rate environment is now. The awardee has maintained the same developer fee as the original application. And if you review the project final timeline as follows. So the project is targeting their executed construction contract this month, civil and landscape plans review and approval done this month, building plan review and approval this month. DCAB review is complete. Permits are expected shortly. Financial closing targeted for March or April of 2024. Construction commencement March, April 2024, and substantial completion by March 2026. Staff has reviewed the project's request and is recommending that the HHFDC Board of Directors approve the following. Approve Resolution 194 as attached as Exhibit D, which amends Resolution 163 to increase the intended tax-exempt HMMF bond award for the project up to $85,152,621 from $71.5 million. Now you will notice that the recommended amount is less than the request amount that was mentioned earlier. The reduced amount will be sufficient to allow the project to meet its 50% test as required for 4% LIHTC, as well as provide sufficient cushion for expenses at given this stage of the project's development and imminent construction beginning. These terms are subject to the provisions and conditions that are attached to the for action as Exhibits E and G. Also requesting that the board approve an increase in the award of annual federal LIHTC over 10 years to $6,131,601. An award increasing the award of state annual LIHTC over 5 years to $6,131,601. These terms are subject to the LIHTC provisions and conditions. as attached in exhibits F and G. Also to authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action. The developing team is here to answer any questions as well as staff.
I'd like to ask if board members have any questions for staff. Motion to approve on the floor. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion, thank you all for following forward this project. H, excuse me. Okay, next agenda item is section 3A to approve the request to amend the rental housing revolving fund award. Number 10 for the HPHA School Street redevelopment project, one project local. UMK number 11-6-009-00, please. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there anyone in the public to give testimony on this agenda item? If not, we'll turn it back to you, David.
Thank you, Chair. Again, same project as the previous for action. So again, on December 1st, 2023, the project resubmitted an application and a request to increase the project's financing awards. This for action will focus on the increase request to the RHRF loan up to $67,860,277. Again, this is an increase request of $27,860,277 in addition to the $40 million that was appropriated by Act 88, Session Law 2021. So as previously mentioned, the developer resubmitted their application to staff, who then evaluated and rescored the application. Results were compared competitively against the applicants from that original 2021 funding round. And even with the increased resources, revised budget, the project still scored well enough to warrant an award, and their score actually improved slightly based on readiness standards. In addition to the previously mentioned factors that were used to determine whether or not the project should be recommended for an award, we wanted to note the following specifically for the RHRF loan. The revised operating budget and revised RHRF loan terms will result in an increased RHRF debt service. The remaining balance on the loan maturity will not be any greater than that of the original application due to this increased debt service. It is standard procedure currently for the finance branch when we do our RHRF loan awards that we require projects to pay their RHRF loans in full by the end of the term. So this project is an exception to that rule for the purposes of moving the project forward, given the age of the project, the scope of the loan, and the size of the project. And the original underwriting for the project did allow for a balance to be remaining. Back in 21, when the project was originally approved, we tried to stay in line as best we can to increase the debt service, but at the same time, honor the scope of the loan that was awarded originally at the time. And as part of the revised application, RHRF will not be drawn completely during the construction period. At the time of permanent loan conversion and completion of construction, final cost certification would be provided by the development team. Should ideally result in a surplus at that time. Any surplus from RHRF to pay down the RHRF balance version. So to refresh the original loan award terms, the original loan amount again was $40 million. Interest was 0% years 1 and 2, and after year 2, 0.25%. There was no origination fee. The origination fee for RHRF was not implemented at that time with the original award. And the loan term again was 55 years. The repayment, 75% of available cash flow after repayment of expenses, senior debt, service, and other recognized expenses. So the staff's amended recommended loan terms are a new loan amount of $67,860,277. No interest again for years 1 and 2. After year 2, interest of 0.25%. The maturity will again be 55 years. year two, we'll pay 75% of available cash flow after expenses, senior debt, and other recognized expenses. The project's loan to value ratio on the RF loan and any other senior debt to the project shall never exceed 100%. There will be no disbursement of the developer's fee. Satisfactory completion of the entire project. The RHRF loan is subject to the availability of funds from RHRF. Any undrawn project RHRF remaining at the time of completion, loan conversion will be applied as principal payment to the project's RHRF balance. Staff has reviewed the project's requests and application as we recommended the following. That the HHFDC Board of Directors approve an increase to the RHRF project award for HBHA School Street Redevelopment Project Phase 1A, $67,860,277. Subject to the following: authorization and approval by the governor for the proposed project and release of RHRF program funds for the project as mandated under Chapter 15-311. Execution of all documentation satisfactory to HHFDC outlining the terms and committing to the conditions of the project award. The documents shall specify the standard terms and conditions required to meet all statutory requirements for the RHRF program. Developer will also need to complete all documentation necessary required to secure the release of RHRF funds. Subsequent certification of the applicant to comply with all applicable statutory and program requirements, including but not limited to chapters 343, 103D, 104, and chapters 103-50. The total fees paid to the developer for the project, including but not limited to developer overhead, developer fees, consultant fees, and the project management fees shall not exceed the amounts indicated in the applicant's consolidated application and in this for action. Also, any undrawn project RHRF funds remaining after completion of construction will be used to pay down the RHRF loan at the time of conversion, and also subject to the availability again of RHRF program funds. Staff is also requesting that the board authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action.
Questions for, yeah. Just a clarification. So RHRF maturing at 55 years. You're projecting 53% repayment at maturity. And so after that, how will that remaining debt be serviced?
That will be served after loan is converted. Whatever portion of the loan is converted to permanent debt, be serviced at 75% of repayment. That is our standard repayment for all projects. After the senior loan is paid off, which will be before the maturity of the RHRF loan, because it's 75% of available cash, the debt service will increase. Again, as I mentioned, staff has been diligent, and the development community has accepted recent awards 2022 and 2023. That the expectation going forward is that the RHRF loan be projected to be paid off in full during the term. So this is a step outside of that, again, due to stay in alignment with the previous loan terms, as that was what was acceptable at the time of the original award.
If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. So, motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to items I. This is to authorize an application for exemptions, statutes, ordinances. -38 for European statute and approve a certification of HCDC a right LLC or other successor entity approved by the executive director. People developer within section 18-2. Two, proposal and the execution of development documents for approved exemptions for the Air Rights Homes redevelopment project located in Honolulu, Oahu, EMK number 11-7-029-003. We do need a motion to authorize an application. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to give testimony on this agenda item? Okay, hearing none,
Thank you.
the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. My name is Albert Palmer. I'm a housing development specialist here at HHFDC. The proposed project involves the phased demolition of the existing Mayor Wright Homes development, which currently consists of 36 low-rise buildings on a property of approximately 14.8 acres, which is owned by the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. And then the phased development or redevelopment of a new mixed-use project consisting of 2,448 affordable rental and affordable and market leasehold for sale residential units, approximately 3,428 parking stalls, 1,500 bicycle parking spaces, and approximately 54,000 gross square feet of commercial and community support space, all to be built within 10 towers throughout 4 phases. The 10 towers will range in height from approximately 87 feet to 350 feet. The developer proposing the project is HCDC Mayor Wright LLC, with High Ridge Costa Development Company LLC as the managing member and Forum Partners as the co-developer. Phase 1 of the project involves the development of 911 units in towers A, B, and C, anticipated to be complete in March 2028. Phase 2 involves the development of 501 units in towers D, E, and F, anticipated to be complete in October 2032. Phase 3 involves the development of 552 units in towers G and H, anticipated to be complete in November 2034. And phase 4 involves the development of 484 units in towers I and J, anticipated to be complete in October 2036. The unit types range from studios to 5-bedroom units, with most of the units being 1- and 2-bedroom units. Project includes 2,329 affordable rental units, 18 managers units, 101 market rate leasehold for sale units. Given the duration of the phase project, this 4 action includes additional details for phase 1. Specifically, Tower A will be 31 stories, approximately 285 feet, with 304 rental units between 30% and 60% AMI plus 2 managers units. Tower B will be 36 stories, approximately 330 feet, with 350 rental units between 80% and 100% AMI plus 2 managers units. Tower C will be 26 stories, approximately 240 feet, with 253 affordable and market leasehold for sale or rental units. There are 2 development scenarios proposed for Tower C. The developer's preferred scenario is to offer all the units for sale in leasehold, with 28 units at 110% AMI, 124 units at 140% AMI, and 101 market rate units. Depending on the sources of financing available, the developer is also requesting the option to potentially develop Tower C as rental, with all of the units at 60% AMI or below, except for 2 managers units. The determination of whether Tower C will be developed as for sale or rental will be made by the developer at a later date, depending on the sources of financing that are available. We note that the approval of this 4 action does not obligate HHFDC to provide any financing award for the project, and HHFDC makes no representations or warranties about the availability of any such financing. Sections 3E through 3L on pages 6 through 8 show the proposed budget and sources of funds for towers A, B, and the 2 scenarios of Tower C. The project's final environmental impact statement and its acceptance were published in the March 8th, 2018 and May 8th, 2018 issues of the environmental notice, respectively. HHFDC determined that additional environmental review was not required for the project as allowable under HAR, and a notice of that determination was published in December 23rd, 2023 edition of the environmental notice. The project is situated in the Kalihi-Palama Neighborhood Board District. The developer presented the project at the neighborhood board meeting on November 15th, 2023. Additionally, the developer hosted meetings with the current Mayor Wright residents on October 4th and December 13th, 2023. and also hosted a town hall meeting at the Lanakila Elementary School, December 14th, 2023. Comments received from the public pertain primarily to the construction timeline, the relocation process to temporary units during construction, the income qualification and return process to the new Mayor Wright development, unit design features and amenities, parking availability, ADA accessibility, and projected student population at neighboring DOE schools. The requested 201H exemptions include exemptions from various fees, park dedication requirements, exemptions from the zoning, including permitted commercial uses, maximum density, maximum building area, yard setbacks, maximum height limit, height setbacks, and bicycle parking. And if Tower C is developed as a leasehold for sale project, then an exemption to allow the project to follow HHFDC's affordability requirements for sale units rather than the city's. The full list of exemptions is in Exhibit G. On December 22nd, 2023, the governor issued an emergency proclamation titled Third Proclamation Relating to Affordable Housing. In addition to the exemptions that the developer is applying for with this application under HRS Section 201H-38, the developer is also seeking to utilize the suspension of HRS Section 201H-38A3 under the emergency proclamation to allow the 201H exemptions to be approved with modifications, or disapproved by the city's Department of Planning and Permitting Director rather than the City Council. The developer is also requesting to utilize two other exemptions pursuant to the emergency proclamation, being from rent of school impact fees and general excise taxes as listed in Exhibit H. And I'm sorry, those are things which are suspended under the emergency proclamation as opposed to exemptions under 201H. A summary of comments received from review agencies is listed in Exhibit I. Some of the more substantial comments are discussed in Section 3U on pages 11 through 12. Staff recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the application and approve the for action subject to the conditions as stated in Section 4 of the for action. Staff notes that the Department of Planning and Permitting Director may make modifications to the project, including to the exemptions and the affordability levels, but that no further action from the board will be required. The Department of Planning and Permitting is planning to host a public hearing on January 22nd, 2024 at 10 a.m. at the Palama Settlement Dining Room. We have representatives here from the developer today available to answer any questions about the projects.
Are there any questions for staff or for? Yes.
Albert, do you know if the phasing of the towers will allow for relocation of existing tenants?
Yes, can I have Mohana Costa address that?
Aloha, good morning. Mo Mohana, Irish Costa Development. Apologies, I think I did not introduce myself last time I was up here. So the way we're going about this master plan, the overall development is about 2,450 units. We are carving out the rectangle on Vineyard and Poa Street. And the first two buildings that we are moving on immediately off the three is a 306 unit LIHTC tower and a 352 missing middle tower. Combined, just the two buildings will generate 658 units. So the objective is the remainder of the site stays there. It will affect about 164 existing units in that rectangle, which is about 13 buildings. Relocation through a third-party relocation company will start late this year or sooner. And it'll take, because we believe construction start is about 2025 next year, assuming we get the allocations in place. The relocation will make sure that these families are relocated. The relocation process, I'm assuming you're interested in it, so I'm going to go ahead and take the liberty of expanding the question. The relocation process provides the existing residents with what's called temporary tenant protection vouchers. That allows the relocation consultants to work with the need of every family, depending on the size, children, and what they need, to see if it's best to relocate them to another property or another HPHA property. Both options are available. Should they choose to move to a non-HPHA property, the tenant protection voucher allows them to continue paying the same amount they're paying. In public housing, the amount they pay is assessed based on their income, and the difference is covered through a variety of. Technically, what you have is really similar to a mobile Section 8 voucher. They go, the amount they're paying is the same, and they're protected. What that allows us to do is allows us to do the demolition, do the construction, and then those particular residents that were moved out have the first right of return. They could say, I want to come back first in line. They go ahead and move in. When they move in, their voucher, that is a tenant protection voucher, stays with them. It is not a project-based voucher, but it's a voucher that will also keep them at the same amount that they're paying and protect them in this way. Additionally, if they choose not to return, that voucher remains with them as well. If they feel that where they're staying is better or they have some other place, that voucher becomes a mobile voucher that protects them. So the benefit to the communities of the number of families that have that protection and that rent level does not go away. And in addition, all relocation expenses to move out is part of the product development cost that will be covered, as well as the relocation expenses should they choose to move back in. Sorry, for a very long answer, but relatively.
Actually, that's very helpful. Sure, appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
I have a question. It relates to 4C and the concept of leasehold condominium sales, if it goes that direction. If we approve the application today, does that lock us into the use of the 10-year buyback and share appreciation restrictions on those units, or could there be an opportunity to fashion something else down the road that is longer term affordability on those units? Because I don't know how you put those restrictions on a leasehold sale. I think it's a sort of frontier that we're considering. I do like the idea because it is going to serve a lot of the gap group, but I don't know that those restrictions are the most appropriate ones to put on a lease sale. So I'm just asking the question today, if the application are locked in, can be.
We would have to exceed a development agreement with Heritage Costa. In there, we would look at our current buyback or share appreciation program to see if it should be modified based on a leasehold program. So there's some flexibility there. We have to adopt administrative rule for a leasehold type of project. There's something that I think we should do, given that we do see more leasehold projects being developed.
That's a very good question, Chair, and thank you for considering having some form of flexibility. It is, I will go back and say, we are trying collectively, ourselves, staff, to come up in other agencies in the state of Hawaii to come up with this concept of for sale, leasehold instruments, potentially, affordable, whatever it's called. And we have a couple of programs that we've been working on in mind to see how it can work, which we need to sit down with both HPHA and HHFDC, do the math, do the numbers. We're trying to be realistic, hence the two-track approach. We believe there are executions. We need to try, as always directed by the state agencies, really starting with HHFDC's leadership, is provide us alternatives. Don't come to just, one pot and one execution. This follows that same logic and philosophy. So we have some good examples we've seen in other areas, examples that we've implemented, and working with staff, we hope to make this happen on the for sale part.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Okay, if not,
May I make just one comment? I do want to make sure we recognize HHFDC staff and leadership on the unbelievable amount of work that's been done in the last couple of months. Mayor Wright, School Street, the time frame, the directive to move forward this affordable housing initiative has been truly overwhelming. Probably the hardest working people we've met. So I just want to recognize the effort. I want everybody to recognize the time frame, whether it's a previous project or this one that has moved from selection of Heritage Costa with HPHA in July to we're sitting today looking at entitling Mayor Wright. That's really a testament to the state agencies, HPHA, HHFDC, yourselves, HPHA's board, entitling Mayor Wright we will be coming before you next month to install another of HVH's products on one of the neighbor islands. But that could not be done. That is only happening because of the hard work of your agency here and HVH's. I just want to recognize that this is record time. Not even the private sector. I mean, this is record time. So kudos to the effort, kudos to the initiative, and kudos to the commitment. We are so grateful. We are only here because of that hard work and commitment. So thank you for allowing me to.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Lauren. And credit goes to Albert, Michelle, who worked on this application, and they did work very hard to meet this deadline.
This has been a project a long time coming. So it's great to see the progress. Thank you. Okay, some favor? Ruth, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Takes us to item 3J. This is discussion on the position of the formerly known as the Maui Sun Hotel, located at 175 East Plus Street, PA Maui, 9-084. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Chair. Morning, members of the board. So here to provide a brief update on status of the possible acquisition of the Hagai property. Room always clears when I come.
Personal, Chris.
So as you recall, at the November meeting, the board approved the acquisition of the property at a price of $34.5 million. That amount is lower than the price contracted under the purchase and sale agreement, which is $37.7 million. That was due to some deficiencies that we uncovered in due diligence relating to life safety issues, basically maintenance and repair issues. As far as the status of the transaction goes, the closing deadline has been extended under the PSA. It was to have closed by year end. That's been extended to the end of this month. Hagai, as the seller, has further extend or will further extend the closing date to February 21st. And our understanding is that they will agree to assign the disaster-related housing reimbursements that are owed to them to us.
Stop here for 1 second.
Okay.
This discussion in executive.
I don't know that we have to. So, pretty keen on that. I don't know that any of this needs to be private.
We don't discuss anything confidential. Much of what Chris is giving update on has been discussions.
I think this can all be public. Well, I guess I should remind everyone about a little bit of background. After the wildfires, Hagai opened the property up to first responders involved in the disaster. And there's been an outstanding invoice or invoices hanging out there seeking reimbursement for providing that housing. Should we agree to pay the full purchase price, which is the $37.7 million under the PSA? It's our understanding today that if we do that, Hagai will agree to assign their rights to that reimbursement money to us. We're not sure exactly what the amount of that is. I believe it's greater than $3 million. That. We're also trying to confirm that it's not going to create any problems with the actual reimbursement. So we got a message into HIEMA regarding that. This is a new development as of like the past 24 hours. We recall that we were working with Maui County on a memorandum of agreement. We sent a draft over to them just before the holidays. So it provides for us to enter into a ground lease of 75 years. Renovations of the project, permanent housing are to be within 3 years. It looks like we've conceptually agreed on the AMI buckets for the units at 1/3 each, at 80% AMI, 100%, and 120%. Looks like we'll agree on a 25% set aside for teachers. In the event that they have trouble filling units with teacher households, then not a problem. They'll be allowed to fill it with households that are income qualified. And to the extent that, there's a wait list that builds up, and then there's a teacher household applicant, they'll just be able to jump the wait list and get priority until you reach that 25% level. That's the ground lease. What we're hoping to agree with the county on is that execute the ground lease and a related regulatory agreement at or prior to the closing. And the effective date of the ground lease and regulatory agreement will be April 2025. During that period of time, we would operate the property to be used for housing for individuals involved in the response to the disaster. We're not talking about survivors of the disaster anymore. It just involves a level of services that I don't think they're just going to be too complicated and expensive to provide. So, and then during that period of time where we're operating it as, this interim housing use, disaster related, the county will issue an RFP. We're going to help them out with that. They'll seek a developer to take a long-term subleasehold interest in the property and convert it to permanent housing in accordance with the requirements of the CIP. So really the last thing for us to agree on is that, and it's really key for us because it's for the documentation of the ground needs to be executed prior to the closing rather than letting it drag on and creating risk that, for whatever reason, the county can't execute and we're left with a long-term property interest that we didn't count on and potentially funding renovations. As far as the interim use, we do have a meeting with American Red Cross tomorrow. They're in there now. They want to stay in for up to another 10 months. They're currently in there for free. So we're going to have a discussion about that. As you may recall, the board approval that was granted in November as a condition to purchasing the property and allowing for this interim use, we need to break even. We don't have funds to subsidize the project. So either the Red Cross will have to, provide, pay us some sort of rent to cover our expenses, which, they've told us they don't want to do, but they probably can do. We could also talk to the Hawaii Community Foundation. I had several conversations with them. They haven't offered us anything yet, but we haven't actually asked for anything. So now might be the time to ask for something. It's kind of where we are. looking, uh, looking like this might happen. And, the timeframe is suddenly short, looking at, closing within 6 weeks or so. There's a lot to do.
Question. So if we agree to it and we take receipt of the whatever's owed, whatever that number is, what's the likelihood we actually get paid?
That will get paid.
Yeah.
So, our understanding from HIEMA is that actually that the documentation of that is very close to being done, and payment will be made very soon thereafter. We're trying to get more detail on that. Again, this is information that just was in the next day or two.
We do have to check though, on the amount, and we do need to make sure that payment can be made to us in lieu of a guy who is the current owner. So those are all things that we need to confirm. So it will be coming to the board next month for approval, ground lease to the county of Maui, and MOU with HHFDC and the county. So two key items are to confirm agreement on terms of sale with the owner, the terms with the county, on terms of a lease and an MOU. With MOU, the application of HHFDC will be to purchase the property. The obligation of the county will be to enter into a lease, to issue an RFP, fund any efficiency a developer might encounter when doing the renovation of the hotel rooms to apartments. As Chris mentioned, the lease will be it will be signed at closing, but in order to allow us to execute to operate the property in the interim, we will set the time at which the county has to take possession of the property to a later date so that we can help the county by operating through. It's being reviewed by staff, by corporation counsel. Yes, once the staff and corporation counsel approves it, it goes to the county council. So it could be in February.
Either Chris. The state HHFDC will continue to the land perpetuity. The county will have a sublease on the land. Who will?
It'll be the county.
So that goes for the sublease? For the own it?
On the land, the county will initially own the building for a term of years, 75, but they will in turn enter into a long-term ground sublease with the developer who will own the improvements for a term of years under the sublease. The sublease. Yes.
I think I understood that too.
So in more simple terms, the county will be a sandwich lessee.
Can I just maybe ask, the timeline wise, there's a lot of steps here being lined up, but not to lose sight that we're trying to provide housing for people affected by the fire and Maui wide already having issues. Are we on track to have this where we purchase it, this lease gets put in place, conversions happen, that in 2025, when we're starting to look for longer term housing solutions, a guy is there as part of the solution set?
Realistically, it's not going to happen in 2025. We're going to issue an RFP hopefully later this year. That has to stay out for, say 6 months before it gets reviewed and awarded. So let's say by end of the year, it can be awarded. The developer has to prepare plans, get permitted by the county. That could take who knows how long. They have to do the conversion work. So you're looking at 2026, 2027.
And then could the wildfire or the affordable housing EP be a tool for shortening any of those steps. Something for further discussion.
Really, it has to run its course because developers have to have time to do their due diligence. It takes time to prepare design plans. Maybe some savings can be on the county side when they review the plans and issue permits. That's where I think we could save some time.
The April 2025 date was chosen because that's in our projection, the date, the month during which we would predict that the sublease will sale to a developer. So that would kind of kick off the development process.
Any other questions for Chris? Thank you for the update.
You.
Hey, Lonnie.
So we'd like to, I guess we can move on to section 4 of today's agenda, which is report by the executive director.
I don't have much of a oral report. It's in the board packet. If you have any questions, I will just note that the fire relief housing program in late December that was transitioned to the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. It's working on that for a while now. The program was very successful. It housed over 600 people. So I really give kudos to the staff for working on that, standing that up just days after the fire happened. But it made sense at this point to transition it to CNHA since they were operating a similar program. It didn't make sense to have two similar programs running concurrently. And for legislator, I'll just note that, it's starting soon. So our focus is, of course, on securing funding for our regular programs, as well as to assist with the rebuild of West Maui. And also looking at, operational needs and what we can do to address some staffing difficulties we have here. So that are all things that we'll be working on in the coming month.
Any questions for Dee? If not, that brings us to section 5, which is adjournment. In a second, all in favor?
You guys.
Great.